875 586 875. Total number of rejected votes 21015.
Valid votes
21015. Total votes cast 607890. 607890.
Okay, thank you very much, Scope. Areas where elections were not held or cancelled, the details and reasons.
Thank you, sir. The total number of cancelled votes was 118,497. 118,497 in 122 polling units, 75 RAs in 18 local government areas. And the reasons were beavers malfunction and overvoting.
Okay, party agents, any, number of PVCs collected.
103, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, 103,089. 103,089.
Okay, party agents, any observations, any comments? Okay, in the absence of any observations or comments, please step forward and submit your report and result. Collection Secretariat, any more? Okay, I think after 15 states at a stretch, we deserve a 2-hour break. So
Collection Secretariat, any more?
Collection officers are on their way. I think one is here already.
Okay, I think after
3 are approaching
states
the collection center. So at this point, we shall take a 2-hour break and return at 9 p.m.
Collection officers are
Thank
on
you
their
very
way.
much.
I think one is here already. 3 are approaching the collection center. So at this point, we shall take a 2-hour break and return at 9 p.m. Thank you very much.
And you're watching a special program looking at the developments around Nigeria's 2023 presidential election. We've been live at the National Collation Center, where they've been reeling out all the figures of the presidential elections and state by state.
Yes.
We've heard, I mean, there have been quite a slew of them. Niger, Benue, Federal Capital Territory, Akwa Ibom, Edo, Abia, Kogi, Bauchi, Plateau, Kano, Kebbi, Zamfara, Sokoto.
15 states in all today. That was way better than we saw yesterday.
Absolutely.
And
well, they've taken a
2-hour
break, yeah, which is quite extensive. But we're going to go through periodically what the winning figures are. But in terms of the last four, I think the NNPP took Kano. Kebbi State was won by the PDP.
Yes.
Zamfara was won by the APC, and
Yes.
Sokoto was also won by the PDP.
Indeed. Very correct, Charles. Well done.
Well, we've got someone who knows about these things who's with us, although I expect he's more concerned about talking about other things. Professor Usman Yusuf. Yusuf Usman is here with us. And Prof, we interrupted you, which I apologize. We were talking about the developments around this election and the fact that some of your your colleagues had decided that they were going to oppose the results, and in fact the PDP, working with the Labour Party, had said that they want the results cancelled. I'm curious to know whether this is just part of, because it's almost a sine qua non for opposition parties to say this. I mean, it's expected usually at the end of every election that they're going to say that they reject the results. I mean, this time, obviously, you and Labour, PDP and Labour, complaining bitterly. How legitimate are those complaints? Because, I mean, they seem to have a lot of public support in this instance.
No, it's, the one I know is very legitimate. I'm not talking abstract. I was in Kazana through the election period. So it's something we saw. People have their papers at the polling station and the numbers. These things have not been uploaded. And you see a different result called out there.
Yeah, but the problem is that the people are saying that you're not presenting that evidence to INEC.
No,
I mean,
what is anybody in Nigeria, is INEC talking about beavers now? In all the things they're talking about at that collation center. Have you heard anything about beavers? There was a lady that questioned the person from Kano. If we've had beavers, we wouldn't have had this. Oh, what's the number? We're still analog. We refuse to upload all results from polling stations as the law stipulates.
yeah, well, what I'm saying is that,
No.
I mean, I know she's going to come with a question in a minute, but
Charles, this is fundamental. You don't do the right thing. You violated the law. You did not upload it for everybody to see. And then you bring papers. Oh, let's talk. Oh, Kano. Oh, Katsina. Oh, this. We are still analog, worse than we were 2015. This election is a lot more confused than we had in 2015. And they were selling, the chairman of INEC overpromised and delivered little. We've seen clips of him saying, no, it will be uploaded from the polling station. No, polling station is what everybody has. Uploaded from there as the law stipulated. They refuse to do that. And they're saying, if you have a problem, challenge our illegality.
yeah, but did they refuse to do it, or were they imperiled by the situation?
Good. Imperiled. You can be imperiled if you don't want to. This is the most important day and time in this country. Someone was telling me last Saturday was a Saturday that there were no marriages in the north, because Saturdays are the days. That's how important it is for our people. And you didn't think it is important enough for you, INEC, and the federal government to provide all that is needed to upload the result? No, we don't believe that. We don't.
But if the result is not transmitted, yet your agents across the country have them, does it change anything?
It does. Because the foundation, the basis, and illegality has already been committed. And INEC know that. They know that. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. The person at the poll, if he doesn't know, INEC knows that. It says sharp, sharp. And you did not do that. And we're not talking about beavers anywhere. We're not talking about uploaded results. No result should be announced unless that is uploaded.
So as it stands, your party is not a part to what's going on. You have already concluded that, you know, this whole election should be cancelled. So does that position still remain to say you are not a part of this election at all? So irrespective of who emerges or who is declared, you're not interested?
No, and I'm not speaking for the party, right? We have been part of this election, and that's why we are protesting in real time. Not after the election, after the event. What the other party wants us to do is allow them to continue this illegality and let their candidate be declared and let us challenge it in court.
Yeah,
that's what they want.
Yeah, but you're not going to stop them. I mean, we're carrying live right now
but
the results being announced.
It's been announced, but we are raising our voices and telling the world that all this is going to be null and void. It's going to be null and void because the foundation was an illegality. Right thing was not done.
Right.
And it is now early enough for them to correct that which is wrong. If they continue with this stubbornness, we don't know. We are talking, I personally am looking at the national security implications of all of this. Not just this guy winning Zamfara, all this. No, do it right. This election, there's a lot more at stake in this election than any of the other elections.
What do you mean by the national implication of this?
National security.
National security implication
absolutely,
of this.
national security.
What do you mean by that?
We need to be very careful. People have been patient and prayerful over the last 8 years that this government, APC, has put us through. And people have been patient. And this was their time to go and cast their vote. Their vote must count. And what we are seeing is that their vote is not being counted. We don't know what's going to happen. We continue to tell our people to be patient and prayerful. The federal government, the INEC, and national security agencies must be very careful and consider the national security implications of our people being deprived of their constitutional right as such. And we're here raising our voices. The votes of our people must count.
Right. Now, former President Obasanjo has called on the President Muhammadu Buhari to intervene. Do you think he should, or do you believe that his intervention will compromise the same legal principle that you're talking about, compromise the independence of INEC?
He is the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Everything stops at his desk. The legacy he wants to leave for this country is a free, fair, and credible election, not this mess we're seeing. He's tried to plug the holes of these thieves that had money to buy votes. He didn't know they had other plans.
When you say, sorry.
Go ahead.
When you say the voice or the votes of the people are being stolen, can you just give us examples? For instance, what states, you are really referring to? Are you saying across the Federation, the people's voices are not being heard?
Right. So we're talking about free, fair, credible election. Mm-hmm. There are places where the government, where the APC government holds rules that people are intimidated, they didn't go out to vote. Right? There were ballot boxes that were stolen. There was violence, people were being killed. People were killed. There were places where essentially beavers were being used. We saw that there.
And the votes are cancelled in such areas. That's why we have cancelled votes.
Right. So you cancel the vote, so you cancel their right to vote.
They are refusing to use beavers.
No, that's what they are telling us. That's what they are telling us. We are here protecting our people. In many places, they don't even know what the beavers are, how to use them. It is our duty and responsibility to help our people, guide our people to exercise their franchise that comes only every 4 years. And here we are, blasé, people giving them Indomie and
So
and the INEC, the umpire.
Right.
We have lost faith in the umpire.
We've got about, well, you're talking about the umpire. We've got about a minute and a half left. I know you've got to run, and we appreciate your being here. But is there an argument to say that part of the problem is the culture within INEC and the persistence of that culture in elections past and present in Nigeria?
What culture do you mean? Culture of doing the
Well,
right thing? Culture of
the culture of that has allowed these sort of, a culture of alleged incompetence, a culture of perhaps, I don't know, inducements.
Absolutely.
I mean, as some have
There is
suggested.
no doubt about it. There's corruption. No doubt at all. We see that in clips. Corruption, incompetence. What are you going to describe this charade you call this 2023 election? This is incompetence where the chairman has been singing at the top of his voice, the beavers, beavers, beavers. We have many clips. And here we are. Where are you, Mr. Chairman? Results have not been uploaded as the law stipulated, and you are still not talking about them. And this is where we are today. Look at this. This is charade, this is a mess. And fellow Nigerians, this result will not count. We will not accept this result. The right thing needs to be done. The earlier this is cleaned up, the better. This is not the legacy Mr. President wants to leave for this country. We need to be very careful. The stakes are very high. National security implications must be seriously considered. We are telling our people to be patient and prayerful. The right thing will come, and our candidate will win this election. I have no doubt about that. They can do all the rigging they want. Thank you very much.
Prof, thank you very much indeed. Professor Usman Yusuf is a public policy expert and supporter of Atiku Abubakar and the PDP.
And you're watching special coverage of Nigeria's 2023 presidential and legislative elections here on Arise News. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.
Running my business on my own, trying my best to get it to the next level, but I really need some help to get ahead. I know just what to do. I'll vote it for my loans, overdraft, step by step to my dream business. We vote. Salary earners, entrepreneurs, get your loans with no collateral. Quick sign up, zero paperwork, step by step to your dream business. We vote.
Vault is available to individuals, SMEs, and corporate customers. Download Vault by Polaris Bank from the Google Play Store or Apple App Store to get started today.
34 million hectares of arable land. Over 200 million people. One nation. Home to Africa's fertilizer company. Dangote Fertilizer. Pure urea fertilizer. With one single-minded passion to feed Nigeria. Every bag is a potential, an aspiration to turn this green nation into the biggest food basket of Africa. Dangote Fertilizer.
Everyone dreams of owning a home, but not everyone has the budget. We understand this, and that's why at Meridian Park Estate, everyone has a fair chance to own a home in Ajah and environs. Over the years, we have consistently and creatively delivered homes at prices that beat the market by about 20% and still furnish them with a flexible plan that makes payment convenient. That's why when our clients fear for price, we confidently say, not even your budget can stop you. Don't let your budget stop you from owning a fully built 3-bedroom maisonette duplex in Ajah for as low as 9.99 million naira key collection deposit and spread the balance over a period of 24 months. For more details and inquiries on how to save millions on a home in Ajah, visit www.meridianparkestate.com.
It all starts with a bell. And that bell means it's business time. The bell rings in London, Lagos, Cairo, and Joburg, kicking off a new day of opportunities. New idea being born and bought, deals being done, big global players winning big or losing it all. IPOs, mergers, takeovers, stocks, bonds, and commodities. In the business world, the winner takes the spoils. In the business day, every moment matters. Trust us to be your guide to the highs and lows of the global marketplace. We'll round up the business day, what's up, what's down, the bears and the bulls, and what to watch out for. This is Arise Exchange.
This is the heart of the business world in Lagos, the commercial capital of Africa's largest economy.
These aren't just numbers. They represent our nation's sharpest minds, our most successful investors, our most inspiring bosses. In Nigeria, business is in our DNA. From micro-business to startups to world-conquering brands. Every success story has something in common. They all started somewhere. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Global Business Report gets to the heart of business. We bring you the stories making headlines across the globe with in-depth analysis from experts and executives.
This is not business as usual. This is the Global Business Report.
He'll certainly have a Herculean job ahead of him.
Absolutely. I think like in evolution, it's survival of the fittest, but also in democracy, it's survival of the most fitting. It's who do the majority feel most comfortable with. And it does show that as a nation, we have difficulty in agreeing with one person. We seem to have three groups of people that we all like, but since we can't go with three, we would have to go with one. It's just who is liked a bit more than the rest.
So how do you think that person is going to, say, because the work ahead is a lot. I mean, right now we know where we were before we went into elections. We're a country deeply in debt. We have, how will I put it now, subsidy that is weighing heavily on the finances of the country. We have all manner of problems, coming out post-COVID, and even, first of all, dig yourselves out of that hole where you are before you even say you're building a castle. The problems ahead of whoever takes it are Herculean, and he certainly, he cannot do it by himself. So if you have people, if you have a population that's already balkanized, how is that person going to go ahead and, and get the work done?
I think whoever it is, if he and that party are better than the rest, we will see it in the extent to which they bridge build. The extent to which they recognize that I am very popular in this place, I am not so popular elsewhere. what can I do? Otherwise, nearly definitely within the next 4 years, somebody knows it's not too difficult for somebody to get a bit more popular than you. So in that sense, I think it plays well for Nigeria that we have this near neck-to-neck competition and rivalry, and I think it keeps each one on their toes. And the beneficiary of all of this, while we may be disappointed in the short term, I think it puts enough pressure on whoever leads to realize, make the best out of the next 4 years. Otherwise, it's going to be really difficult for you to have another round. And I think the fact that we got some really nearly shocking surprises in states where you would not have expected this person to go ahead of the other, we saw that. So it, I think, tells us that we're still learning about our country. Our country is not static. It's growing, the demographics, the opinions. So I think it's a Herculean task, absolutely. But I think it's one where, for us who are expecting more from our leaders, I think the scenario is the best we can hope for putting pressure on our leaders.
All right, let's we've heard the speaker a moment ago, but let's listen to the vice presidential candidates of the Labour Party and that of the People's Democratic Party. They spoke earlier how they're not happy with the situation at the moment.
And everybody was very excited about the Electoral Act. And I'm also happy to say that the chairman of INEC was also very excited about that Electoral Act, because we know that at a point in time, during the debates, we were unlikely to have the Electoral Act and to have it into law. But eventually, the bill was passed and it was assented to. And we thank President Muhammad Buhari for that. And it's very clear, you cannot beat the law. So when you're talking about how do we go, for me, a lot of calls can be made. But truly at this point in time, it's clearly stated in that Electoral Act what must be done, and shall is mandatory. All election results must be transmitted at the polling unit level. And that is the basis, is those results from the over 176,000 units that we can use through the process of collation. So if you have not transmitted those results, it means that you have actually not conducted the election under the very law that we all applauded. So the right thing to do is for the INEC chairman to truly go forward and cancel the elections.
I hereby adopt the submission of my brother, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, Vice Presidential Candidate of the PDP. Having said this, our national chairman have spoken. Before then, our agents had done their bit. They made us proud by holding INEC chairman to a promise that the results will be reviewed, but sadly, after declaration of results. And they also walked out in protest, were in order with their actions. I would like to say that after some time today or tomorrow, we should expect another more elaborate press briefing by our respective principals, who are very much in touch with us and on the same page with us regarding this press briefing. Fellow Nigerians, let me draw our attention to some fundamental definitions. Democracy does not merely mean that you have 3 arms of government. That is not democracy. The executive must be truly elected. If the government is not truly, genuinely elected, you do have a constitutional problem. Now we are witnessing the fact that the next government is going to be built on outright illegality. This illegality has been so eloquently presented by my brother Governor Okowa. The sections have been clearly spelled out. Attention of the whole world has been drawn to this. What INEC has accelerated itself to doing is to put itself in a trance to promote illegality and thereafter call for the courts to resolve the illegality that they have worked on. Nowhere in the world where there is respect for rule of law do people easily and hurriedly tell others.
All right, so the All Progressives Congress also had their own presser, and here was what they said.
Okay. Yes, you can see him.
You must have read all the statements poured out yesterday by various people, not least that of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, where he was literally calling for the cancellation of the last Saturday's presidential and National Assembly elections. Obasanjo's call was anchored on the unsubstantiated claims, rumors, and allegations of fraud by opposition parties led by the PDP and Labour Party, who, having seen that they have lost the election, would rather want our hard-won democracy to be truncated on the altar of their lies. You must also be aware of the gang-up by the PDP and the Labour Party, whose agents walked out of the National Coalition Center in Abuja on Monday. Today, they continued their conspiracy to truncate our 24-year democratic journey by raising unfounded allegations against INEC, casting aspersions on the whole electoral process, forgetting the process had handed them unexpected victories in some states. We have always suspected that Labour Party and the PDP are the same. They are only divided by individual inordinate ambition. We want to remind them that election is a process, like pregnancy. And like a pregnancy that has reached full term, it cannot be aborted. We are not in 1993 when June 12 was aborted by similar forces. It is too late to do so now. This is 2023, and the entire world is watching our democratic process. The process must be completed. That is the nuance, the principle, and the convention of democracy. Election is a democratic process. It must be completed. Whoever is aggrieved has constitutional institutions to seek succor, justice, equity, or whatever. The APC-PCC wants to say emphatically that former President Obasanjo has no moral right to meddle in this election, let alone calling for its cancellation because he's an interested party, having publicly on January 1 this year endorsed the candidate of the Labour Party, Mr. Obi. Although we stand by our position as stated yesterday, not to jump the protocol governing the announcement of the election results and allow Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, to perform its constitutional duty, we want to tell the gathering anti-democratic forces that we have the strength, the determination, and the will to protect and defend this process and the soon-to-be formally announced mandate freely given to our party and our presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and his running mate, Senator Kashim Shettima. We are ready to defend the soon-to-be formally announced mandate freely given to them. We are very well aware of the plan of the PDP and their Labour Party collaborators to heighten tension in the country and create general state of fear through their sponsored television and radio surrogates who continue to push false narratives about the general conduct of the election. We are also aware of the coordinated assaults aimed at discrediting the whole electoral process and the integrity of INEC by their so-called paid and partisan agents who wear the toga of election observers. We consider Obasanjo and his fellow travelers their failed attempt to scuttle the process through his unsolicited advice to President Muhammadu Buhari to cancel the election as part of the grand orchestration of many evil plots to truncate democracy in Nigeria. Part of the evil plot that has been making the rounds in the last several weeks is the pernicious agenda of wanting to impose and foist an interim government on Nigeria. This is not 1993. Nigerians in unison want this democratic process completed, and so it shall be. The integrity of the electoral process has been attested to by the international observers, such as the Commonwealth, the ECOWAS, the African Union observer missions, who adjudged the election as peaceful, free, and fair, whilst they identified areas of logistical improvements INEC should take into consideration in future elections. Nigeria and any other nation in the world is an ongoing concern. And so there are political hitches, there are economic hitches, there are infrastructural hitches, there are democratic hitches, there are procedural hitches. That does not mean that the nation will be aborted. And so this democratic process cannot be aborted. Now, as you are aware, the election was replete with drama. We saw the APC presidential candidate, party chairman, and PCC director general losing their home states to the Labour Party. Our DG lost his bid to the Senate. They didn't call for fire and brimstone. They did not say the country should halt and not move because they have lost their home bases. These are true Democrats. And we call on anybody in this country who claims to be a Democrat to imbibe the tenets, the nuance, the dynamics, and principles of democracy. And to be a honorable
Dr. Waja, what do you think of this?
We have also seen how
we're still back to the crisis of confidence on the part of the political parties, because the APC is calling for INEC to continue, and the other political parties are saying you need to halt. We don't believe in the process. And I think for me at this stage, it's for us as Nigerians to really decide where do we place this country. Do we place it at the point where the systems that have been put in place to manage conflict, like the court, for instance, are useless because we are getting into a situation where the whole question of the role of the court in the context of what the judiciary should be doing is coming out quite clearly. And I think we are yet to even complete the process. And my sense is that INEC should continue this process, and when we complete it, many of these concerns, there are safeguards, constitutional safeguards that are available where aggrieved parties should go and seek redress. If we don't do that, and I am making this statement with all sense of responsibility, because right now the country is sitting on a bomb keg, because the followers are out there just waiting for directions, and if we are not careful with the way politicians speak, and these young men and women, as vulnerable as they are, as hungry as they are now sent out in the street, they are the same people that will be the victims of this violence, because the individuals that are speaking, be it for or against, many of them are to a large extent secured. Before the fire gets to them, many of these young boys and women
we'll get a lot more.
Their own future truncated.
We'll get more of both your perspectives and more from commentary when we return after this break.
Experience the opulence and security of Swiss Street Doors. With over 30 years experience, exclusive with a touch of history and craftsmanship, Swiss Street Doors are made from the finest ancient aga and ivory wood. A range of exclusive armored doors, elegant interior doors, carefully crafted by world-renowned architects and engineers. At Swiss Street, a door is much more, plus premium quality onyx stones and luxury interiors. Visit Swiss Street today or call now. Swiss Street, blend of beauty and security.
My name is Austin Azuko Kocha, but you all call me JJ. That's because I was so unstoppable, they named me twice. During my days as a professional footballer, I played as an attacking midfielder. When I was a kid growing up in the cold city of Enugu, I had just one dream, and that was to be an unstoppable professional footballer with titles and records to my name. Yes, I went ahead to win titles in Europe and Africa during my playing days. Those days, there were times when it was difficult for me to perform due to injuries or when it seemed that I was out of form. But you know what? I never stayed down. I remained unstoppable. In fact, I always came back better, dribbling in an unstoppable way, assisting goals and scoring goals. No one could stop me, not even malaria, when mosquito bites. Now you too can be unstoppable if you use Lonat against malaria.
Lonat, a combination of Artemether and lumefantrine. Lonat, be unstoppable.
Do you feel terrified when speaking before a group? Are you stressed when asked to present? Do you forget your points? Are you shy and need confidence? How do you give a speech with polish? Learn how at the School of Eloquence,
the home of public speaking. Attend the public speaking masterclass or one-on-one coaching in Lagos and Abuja and boost your speaking confidence before any audience. To register, call 0906-781-5830 or log on to schoolofeloquence.org. School of Eloquence, teaching the world to speak.
Since 2016, Horizon Estates has delivered quality homes in and around Lekki Phase 1. We've built a reputation of creating a fine balance of affordability, prime locations, and world-class quality. Horizon Estates has delivered thousands of homes at pocket-friendly prices, and today, an opportunity to own one has come knocking on your door. You can own a 3-bedroom apartment in Lekki Phase 1 with a 79.99 million naira outright payment, or a 2-bedroom apartment opposite Lekki Phase 1 at 35.99 million naira outright payment, or you can make a 19.99 million naira initial deposit, moving immediately into your 4-bedroom maisonette by Lekki Phase 1 and pay the balance across 24 months while you live in. To become a proud owner of a quality home in Lekki Phase 1, visit hzelekki.com.
Upgrade your DSTV package to enjoy all the content you love. That means if you're on Yanga and you upgrade to Confirm, you get boosted to Compact. And if you unconfirm and you upgrade to Compact, you get boosted to Compact Plus.
As it has. In a first challenge, the APC Presidential Campaign Council spokesperson said the party would defend its votes and was confident of victory. They also say the PDP and Labour Party were trying to provoke and intimidate APC voters and supporters, and it was all shout and fury that would amount to nothing.
If there's a problem, go to court afterwards. That's how civilized people behave. You don't gather yourself together and say, because my candidate is losing, because my party is losing, because we are losing everywhere, or we've lost, and we've seen our aspirations melting like an iceberg approaching the tropics, that will scatter everything and set Nigeria back. This election will be defended once the announcement has been made that our candidate has won. This is something that we said yesterday, we're saying it again now. They should not try to abort the process, otherwise there will be consequences in this country, because we will not allow another June 12th. By God's grace, this democracy will stand. And shame on them for what they're trying to do.
We did say categorically that our candidate, being a committed Democrat, not just in theory, but in practice, and has been exemplified by his track record in the democratic struggle, in instilling or making sure that this democracy we practice is alive and kicking. Much more than any other candidate in the horizon today. Because of all of this, he is going to accept defeat in good conscience, honorably. And he has done it in Lagos a few days ago. How many times are we going to repeat that? It's so simple. He has demonstrated it. And he did say, and I've repeated it, if you are not prepared to absorb the shock of defeat, you have no moral right to enjoy the fruits of victory.
Exactly.
That says it all.
The route they are taking is a route that is strange to law, strange to the process, strange to everything known under the Electoral Act. It is an illegal route they are taking, and it's just an illegal route to power that they want to take. And the last point I want to make is that they should understand that the different parts of this country and people who voted for different candidates, they have a right to get for their voices to be heard. You want resounding in the areas where you come from. Let's be honest about this. You mean those places where we won resoundingly, you expected to come and win there? Did you expect to come and win there?
That's a fairly feisty interview, press conference there from the spokespersons of the APC's Presidential Campaign Council. Well, for more on all that, we're joined in the studio by the Deputy Spokesperson of the Tinubu APC Presidential Campaign Council, Hannatu Musawa. Thank you very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Thank you, Mr. Adesina.
There's a lot to talk to you about,
yes.
But let's start with the issue that's suddenly come up, which is this question of the Federal Capital Territory. And because you're a lawyer,
yes.
You're a barrister,
yes.
What's your take on that?
Well, you know, I did listen to again, thank you for having me on the show. I did listen to the submission of the guest that was on before.
Yeah, Frank Tietie.
Yeah, exactly, who is a very renowned lawyer. And I completely disagree with him. I think he tried to say that under Section 134, where it said that a person vying has to win simple majority and then has to win 2/3 of 24 states plus the FCT. He tried to single out the FCT as something distinct and quite special in that you'd have to win the FCT as well. But that is not, I mean, we can see what it says up. A candidate for an election to the office of the president shall be deemed to have been duly elected, where there have been only 2 candidates for the election. He has a simple majority, and he has no less than 1/4 of the votes cast in an election in each of the at least 2/3, plus the FCT. But the FCT...
Well, you just said plus.
It's and. Yes, and the FCT. But that means the FCT is an additional state.
It's part of the block.
It's part of a block, and,
right.
and renowned learned Silk, Femi Falana today clarified the issue. And if I would want to read it,
go ahead.
if that's all right. because I did.
We need to understand this stuff.
Yeah, because he said, when he was asked, he said in a statement that was issued by him today, he explained that the law sees the FCT as any of the 36 states in the country. He said, and I quote, Section 2991 of the Constitution provides that the provisions of the Constitution shall apply to the Federal Capital Territory as if it were one of the states. Oh, there goes my phone.
Right, but we get the gist of it.
Yes, of course. As if it were one of the states in the country.
Yeah, but the problem...
So that would be 30, the FCT would be the 37th state.
Yeah, but the problem is that that is subject to interpretation.
Oh, yes, that is...
It has not been subjected, because we have another silk, Olisa Abakaba, who used to be the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, saying he agrees with Frank Tietie's interpretation.
My own perception of the different interpretations would be any lawyer at this point that would categorically say that the FCT has to be one on its own, it's submitting themselves or exposing themselves as someone who supports the candidacy of Peter Obi, purely because Peter Obi has been able to win the FCT. As apart from that,
well, that's not entirely fair.
No,
that's what's raised the issue. It doesn't mean that it's about support.
But I believe
it's about
I believe that's what it
legalism.
is, because it doesn't make sense to me, from my own legal mind, that any lawyer would interpret that part as saying that the FCT is a distinct part of Nigeria.
But the same can also be said of your interpretation, to say because you did not have FCT, then you interpret it to favor you.
Well, that was
so they
Femi
can
Falana.
also say
That's a good point.
They can also say
no,
that.
but that was Femi Falana.
Because you said any lawyer. You said any lawyer.
Any silk.
So any silk. So they could also say any silk who interprets it otherwise.
Then
could mean that
I guess then it has to go for legal interpretation.
Indeed.
But I think we have to be mindful of the fact that sentiments may be brought into this, and maybe we should let the law, the courts interpret it. But for any lawyer to come and categorically sit here and say that the FCT is a distinct part, as if it's not an equal part of Nigeria. So that to me sounds outrageous, to be honest.
So if we have, what you're saying is now that we should have been treating the FCT as a state all along.
Yes.
But nothing in the FCT suggests that it's a state. It doesn't have local government areas. It has area councils. It doesn't have a governor.
So that makes it distinct.
But that also doesn't mean that the FCT is distinct to the point that it would be the one place.
It would be a separate
that would be able to determine who wins. In a situation where you have a candidate that didn't win any state and then was able to win the FCT, to me that does not make sense. It's not equal. So it may be distinct because it's the federal capital territory, but it's not distinct to the point that it is the sole entity that would decide who would be the president of Nigeria. That to me does not make sense.
Right, okay, well let's move away from that discussion, because obviously
we'll leave that to legal interpretation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not going to get we won't get to the conclusion of that. Let's move to the other issues, which is the issues percolating around the calls by your opponents in this election for the results to be annulled. Do you think they have a point?
No, I don't. I really don't. I think, first and foremost, put politics aside, we all have to look at this nation as one. At the end of the day, we are going through a democratic process that's supposed to empower us and embolden us as a nation. And it is a process that we're supposed to go into. I know there's a lot of hyperbole and stuff that goes into the whole progress of the system. But at the end of the day, we did a democratic process and to allow Nigerians to have their say. And in allowing Nigerians to have their say, there's going to have to be one winner. And we have rules that are able to determine who that winner is going to be. But at the end of the day, we need to look beyond these politics. We need to, whatever we do, whatever we say, we need to understand that we need to allow this country to be united after whatever we've gone through. There's bound to be one winner. And I can tell you at the beginning of, after the election, I didn't think we were going to win. There was a time that it looked as if APC was not going to win. And I understand that when you become so invested in your candidates and your party, it becomes a very emotional sort of exercise for everyone. So everyone wants their candidate to win. But at the end of the day, someone is going to have to win. And it is the person that's going to have to win is the person who the law prescribes is going to win. And unfortunately for the opposition, unfortunately for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the APC, it looks as if it's going to be Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And I think, honestly, we should take this in good stride, and we should be able to look beyond some of these rhetoric that is being put up at this point.
Yeah, but
it's really heating up the policy.
Is it rhetoric, or is there, because I mean, ultimately what we're looking for is democratic progress,
Exactly.
but elections that are free and fair. I mean, would it be erroneous to try and pretend that there are no issues with INEC and the way that they ran this election,
but
in the same way that it would be ridiculous to suggest that the technology that was used to run this election didn't have a problem, because
Listen,
it clearly did.
There really is no perfect electoral process, even in America, even in the most developed democracies. So definitely there was some issues with this particular election, but not to the point that it went to the core of determining whether this election was not fair. I think this, to me, I believe this was the freest and fairest election. The fact that you had strongholds of the ruling party that was completely decimated by the opposition party and even by a third force, and you had sitting governors that were completely disbanded. You look at my state of Katsina. I was not expecting Katsina to lose to PDP. We lost by 6,000 votes. That was devastating for me. I mean, at a point, I had to take time out and go and watch section 6 of The Walking Dead because I was, the anxiety was such. But I tell you, but at the end of the day, you know, the fact that this election has brought out so many different surprises, I think that in itself should tell Nigerians that this was a very democratic process. You have a ruling party that was literally struggling. But for the fact that the PDP couldn't get its act right and the Labour Party completely cannibalized its base, we would have really been in trouble. So this was a very, very fair process. And before the election took place, it was the opposition that was very happy with the policy, the Naira redesign policy, the bad implementation of which really affected us in a negative way. And everybody was hailing this, saying that, oh, we're now going to have a free process because there's not going to be vote buying. And then when the results started coming out, when the result of Lagos came and we lost Lagos, I did not hear anyone in the opposition party complain and ask for a rerun. They didn't. But it was not until it was becoming very clear that the APC was going to coast to victory. Then you started seeing all this, you know, walkouts and, you know, huffing and puffing.
Well, we still have a couple of more states.
And tiaras.
We still have a couple of more states to be announced, but you do sound confident that you're coasting victory.
Yeah, absolutely.
But just to point out that the opposition don't care about the states they've won or the ones they've lost. They're saying cancel the entire process, including Lagos, which was a major upset in Nigerian politics.
And the FCT,
and the
which has
FCT,
become controversial.
And possibly, but
no,
also
no, that's
you're
not
going
what
to respond to that. That's what they're saying. They're asking for a total cancellation
now
of the
they're
polls.
saying that. Initially, when the results came out, and the FCT in Lagos was lost to the Labour Party, and Katsina was lost to the PDP, nobody said anything about cancelling the results. It was only after. It's very convenient for them now to speak about.
What is the APC afraid of? Should we have this whole process done all over again? After all, they are coasting to victory.
No.
So why are you so against cancellation? I just want to know what the concerns are.
Okay, first of all, why should we cancel an election that was done? There are many people, we do understand if there are some irregularities. The people who have a complaint have a proper channel to be able to take those complaints.
You talked about rules earlier,
right?
But
can I just finish?
You will finish because this points to the fact you're making. There are rules that guide this whole process, and you talked about earlier, and they are saying that the law that guides the process has been jettisoned. So, if it has been jettisoned, why we're going ahead. That's what they're saying.
Well, the law that guides, if they feel that way, then they have a proper channel to be able to
Yeah, but
present
the issue here is that you're going...
in the tribunal.
No, the issue is that you're proceeding with the not you, but the INEC is proceeding with the announcement of the results. And the big fear is that once the results are announced, it becomes very difficult to retract.
But INEC is doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, but the INEC didn't do what it was supposed to do when it was supposed to
upload the results.
No, hang on a minute.
In order to give confidence to
the polling unit,
voters.
there was a returning officer at the polling unit, right?
Yeah.
That didn't reject the process then. It now went to the ward. They didn't reject the process then. They had an opportunity to do it. It goes to the local government. Nobody said anything. It went to the state. They didn't say anything. At every single level, there's a presiding officer that is supposed to, if there's some irregularity, that's supposed to raise a concern. An agent, exactly. Right. But it wasn't raised then. It was not until, my point is, it wasn't raised then because it looked as if... No, but it wasn't.
They said the results were not uploaded to IREV. Political parties raised that even on the day of election, February 25th, that the results were not being uploaded.
A lot of members, voters, raised that same.
They was not being uploaded.
I mean, it was like a citizen...
No, I don't...
Up until now, we do not have the 176,000 plus units result on IREV as we speak.
Yes.
And this is like 3 days after the election.
The fact that at those very levels, you had the residing officers and the agents that signed and said it was a proper process that had taken place. There's prima facie evidence that everything was done correctly.
But you see, that's something that is disputable. And the reason it is that we have to be clear, and these are things that are submitted to a court of law. We've got to be clear.
Then you take it to the tribunal.
No, hold on. We've got to be clear.
There's a proper channel.
We've got to be clear which came first, okay? Because you can finish counting an election and say, right, okay, sign here, and they sign. And then you say upload it, and you don't upload it.
Then they should have raised.
Yeah, well, they clearly have.
Well, they hadn't.
That's what this whole issue is about.
No, well, they hadn't, because if they had, they wouldn't have transferred the results to the next level.
No.
Up to the state level, up to to the national level.
I think the issue is that when you come to the national level, that's where the issue of the upload was really most prominent, because people are coming there. I mean, everything is supposed to be uploaded and people are seeing it. What's the most reasonable place to make your argument?
In the tribunal.
About the upload.
In the tribunal.
It's at that place
no,
to say
isn't,
you're not
because
getting it right.
Not you see, as the residing officer, the chairman, his position at this point is to receive the results and to announce. The opposition has not even allowed him to finish receiving and announcing the results.
Because he's not following the procedure, according to them. He's not following the rules.
According to them, then they take that to the tribunal, because obviously he is following the rules. That's why he's carrying on with the process.
No, but the problem with it, I mean, I'm not a spokesperson for the opposition.
Well, I hope not. I should hope not.
But
because half the media seems to be a spokesperson specifically to the Labour Party.
We're interested in propriety.
Right.
That's the whole point of this. And we are representatives of the people. That's what we're here to do. So the bottom line is that...
Which is what we are as well. We're represented because we are representing people.
Well, you're involved in partisan politics,
and there are people
which
that
are
not. Part of...
That's the difference.
I should hope not, because you see...
Well, you are partisan, and we're not.
Well, I'm not sure about that, because the media has been slightly...
Well, that's a fairly general term,
but I think it is. I think it is quite palpable that there has been a level of, maybe it's unconscious, but there's an unconscious bias when it comes to the media, which is the reason why we, as a campaign, refused to allow Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to go for those debates, because we felt that there's a sort of unconscious bias with the media.
No, hold on. It's not unconscious bias. It is the media are doing what is expected of them, which is that your party, the APC, has been in power. in this country for the last 8 years. It is them whose feet we have to hold to the fire, not the opposition who are not in power.
No, you have to hold their feet to the power as well.
No,
they've come with manifestos. You've got to interrogate those. Oh, yes, we were held at a higher standard.
What I mean is that you don't expect us not to challenge the things that you've done and
but
to
I expect
analyze
you to challenge
the things
everything on the same level.
Yeah, but there's no way that you could bring, it happens in any country, there's no way that you could bring Tinubu, Atiku and Obi on the one platform. And obviously the questions they're going to turn to Tinubu and say, you're from the ruling APC party.
No, but he's not
you
Buhari.
Ran this country for the last 8 years.
Tinubu isn't Buhari.
On what basis should we vote
but there's
for
a difference. There's a clear difference you can see. Even with the Naira policy, that wasn't part of it's not part of our manifesto. So there's a clear difference. And I really expected that the media was going to treat our principles the same as the other principles.
But you just said here,
the opposition, but that was not our experience.
But that wasn't the fault of the media. You just said here that you shielded him from the media.
No, no.
I
didn't say we shielded him from the media. I said we shielded him from the debates.
And
it's a general because he still
do you think you did him some disservice? Because a lot of people will say because he did not appear at those debates or whatever they were to talk to the people one-on-one, he lost an opportunity. It was a lost opportunity.
Well, evidently not. If going by the results of evidently not going by the results of the election, it seems a lot of people still bought into this vision that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu had, despite the fact he didn't go for the debate.
That's great. But you're also trying to dissociate Bola Tinubu from the president, which we've had, they are one and the same. They've known each other for 20 years. They are friends. The president, flashed his ballot paper to show he voted for Tinubu. But here you are dissociating him from...
Well, they're not the same. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a Yoruba man from Lagos, and Muhammadu Buhari is a Fulani man from Katsina.
Of the same APC.
Of the same APC. And Atiku Abubakar is a Fulani man from the north. So obviously they're not obviously the same.
You sounded like he will upturn all of the policies of the last 8 years. Should he become president?
No, what we will do is we will consolidate on the areas that he's been able to be successful. And in the areas that we've had challenges, Bola Ahmed Tinubu will bring different programs.
Right, okay, well, you haven't won yet.
Yeah.
So
we're almost let's
not talk as if you've won, because technically we're not supposed to do that.
Yes, but
until
we're
you're officially declared the winner.
But
let's move to the things that have been happening in the last sort of 48 hours or so. I mean, there's been an extraordinary back and forth between the APC Presidential Campaign Council and the opposition. I mean, that's partly what we were talking about here. And there is concern that things are getting more heated and more inflamed. I mean, you have to admit that your news conference this afternoon, you were there, because I saw you on the telly.
Yes, I was.
Although some would argue that you were a moderating voice. But it was just very, very fiery and almost frightening to some extent. I mean, how much does that worry you, and do you see an end in sight? And I'm not saying that it's just you. I'm saying the rhetoric getting more heated on both sides.
I think what is more worrying, is the actions of the PDP and the Labour Party and the other party the third party that did their press conference, and the behaviour of some of the agents of the PDP in the collation centre. I think that's more worrying. But what is even more worrying is the letter that the former president Olusegun Obasanjo wrote. I mean, that's very worrying because it's almost calling for an insurrection. That's what it seems to me.
No, that's not what he's calling.
No, but that's what it seems.
Yeah, but that's the wrong interpretation.
No, but it isn't, though, Mr. Charles. It's no different to what President Trump did when he lost his election. And I say this with utmost respect and appreciation for all that Olusegun Obasanjo, the service he's given this country. But for him to come out at this point and heat the polity by writing a letter to suggest that, to truncate the democracy, I think it's very irresponsible.
But
it's
you see again,
and that is more frightening than the press
but we
conference
go
that we
back
had.
to the point that you made earlier, and I think Adesua also made, which is the question of which bit of this do you consider to be more democratic? Because for somebody to call for respect for the votes of people, lots of people were disenfranchised. That's a fact. Lots of people were prevented from voting. There is a process that makes the election that for people come across as free and fair. It's supposed to be uploaded as soon as the votes are counted, so that people feel confident that the process has not been manipulated
So the
or
millions
tampered
of
with.
other people,
and it didn't happen.
The millions of other people, myself included, that exercised our constitutional rights and went to vote and lined up and did accreditation in the proper way, we should be disenfranchised because of the rantings of a few. There's a proper channel to take to take any dispute that you have. You take it to a tribunal. That's why it's there. Why should millions of other people who went and lined up and exercised their civic duty, why should they be disenfranchised? Just because the opposition is clear that they're going to lose the election.
You call it rantings of a few.
There's millions of people.
And there are millions of people who actually exercise that civic duty, and they have a right to have their constitutional right protected as well.
Are you cherry picking because there are some millions, in your own words, that, are coasting to victory, are pushing you to victory as a party, and so you will ignore the other millions who are complaining to say this is not transparent?
We don't want to ignore the other millions. I, as a lawyer, wouldn't want that at all. But I would want whatever dispute they have to be taken to the proper channel, because this is an orderly country. We have rules and regulations. We have a constitution of which we have to abide.
Right.
We cannot, just because a few people, or maybe millions of people, but there are millions of other people who are able to exercise their civic duty. And they have a right to have their voices heard as well.
You're a lawyer. Is there a legal framework for all these issues to be articulated and resolved before all these results, some would say tainted results, I mean, that's the opposition saying that, are announced? I say this because many Nigerians don't have confidence in the judicial system in this country. They see it as favoring politicians in office, and the fear is that once you announce a provisional winner, it'll be hard to get that reversed.
Why would that be? If we believe in our legal system, why would anybody say
I just told you that many people don't have confidence in that legal system.
Well, I mean, we operate under rules and regulations and the Constitution, and it's for us to be able to let that play out in the court of law. I mean, it would be ridiculous for us, everybody that has a complaint, to go and take it out, and we have to listen to everyone's complaint. For me, the people who lined up on the 25th of December, 25th of February, and exercised their civil duty have a right to have their freedoms protected. And this is exactly what the chairman of the INEC, hopefully, is going to do. And anyone who has any issue should take it up in the law courts.
How about the international observers? Are you concerned about what they've been saying about the process so far? And, what that means for credibility of whoever wins this election?
Because, I mean, they've been unequivocal in saying that INEC has failed Nigerians.
Well, I don't know. The international observers that I've come across have actually spoken about how, no, but it's true. How peaceful. I met some as I was coming up here.
Largely peaceful, they say.
Largely peaceful and fair. And for me,
they didn't say fair.
It was
fair. Said it was largely peaceful.
Mr. Charles, the fact that we had a process whereby the whole map, the political map of Nigeria has changed, I think we need nothing more than to look at that to understand that what we saw was democracy at play. That's exactly what it was.
But how can it be democracy at play when the position of many, many Nigerians, based on the assurances given to them by INEC, is no beavers, no results. I mean,
No
INEC
IREV.
made a promise, yeah, and IREV. I mean, the promise INEC made repeatedly amid a blaze of publicity is that they're going to do it in a particular way.
Yes.
And it never happened.
Well, it never happened, or it's happening. It's something that has to be played out in the tribunal. That is just what it is. At this point, I don't understand what the opposition wants. What the opposition wants is for us to truncate completely this system. To redo the election from the beginning?
The opposition
is
are
that what they
concerned.
want? Our concern is the fact that there's rhetoric, or there were whispers that there's intention to put up an interim national government. This is my own fear.
That's not.
Well, that's my
That's
fear.
not everybody
Okay,
talking
but-
about.
No, but it is, Mr. Charles. It actually is.
Former head of state, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, who's also the head of the Peace Committee, also yesterday released a press statement. And in paragraph 7 of that statement, he did say INEC should take all the time it requires to ensure that it delivers results that inspire the confidence of the people and meet time-tested international standards. His words. So my question is, if opposition is saying, INEC, pause this collation process, investigate the claim, because initially that's what they said, and then there was no response, and they said, you know what, cancel the entire result. My question is, would the APC as a party be even willing for INEC to pause the process and investigate all of this anomaly so that we have a more credible election, and the person who emerges the president of Nigeria has some sort of credibility that he has the vote of the people of Nigeria?
Yes, if the chairman of INEC deems that it is correct based on the complaints that some of these parties have, then we don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Because we are confident that at the end of the day, unfortunately for the main opposition party, PDP, because Labour Party took away its base and split its votes, we are confident that no matter what happens, APC is going to still be victorious, and Ashwaju will be president at the end of the day.
On that note, I want to thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you, Mr. Charles. Thank you, Ms. Adesu.
Is Deputy Spokesperson of the Tinubu APC Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, you're watching special coverage of Nigeria's 2023 presidential and legislative elections here on the Rise News. It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more. Stay with us.
What is really happening in Akamata market? It seems these people don't want the election to hold.
I hope you're broadcasting to the world must hear.
No. Is that how you people share sensitive news like that without verifying it? If I may ask, which news platform published the news?
Jojo sent it though.
Jojo? Is that not the same Jojo that posted a fake election result the last time that almost caused a riot?
You know they forget something.
No. In this election season and after, one must be very careful. Or do you want to set the country on fire?
Haba.
Fake news is a threat to a free and fair election and to peace and security. So, before you share any news, check to be sure the source is credible. Check if there are supporting credible sources. Read beyond the headlines. Check the author. Check the date. Check your biases. Ask an expert or send to a fact-checking organization for confirmation. Say no to fake news. This message is brought to you by the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD, with support from the UK government.
Every day, life presents hopes, dreams, and challenges. Challenges that can become successes with a little help. Because a little help can empower you to go from despair to celebration. A A little help can keep you going until the race is won. A little help can turn bundles of anxiety into a bundle of joy. And with Glow Data, you get much more than just a little help. You get the biggest data deals in town to make every day glow with small wins and big wins. Dial *777# to select your Glow Data plan.
First, there are two types of elections holding in the general elections. The first is legislative elections, that's elections to the National Assembly and state houses of assembly. And the second is executive elections for presidential and governorship elections. The legal requirements for declaring a winner in these two types of elections are different. INEC cannot announce a winner if these legal requirements are not fulfilled. So for legislative elections, winners emerge through simple majority. Any candidate with the highest number of votes will be declared a winner. So one vote can make a significant difference here. But for executive elections like the presidential election, the Constitution sets two major criteria for determining a winner of a presidential election. And here are the two conditions. The first one, a candidate must secure the highest number of votes cast at the election. The highest number of votes cast at the election is the first condition. Condition number two, the candidate must secure not less than 25% of votes cast in at least 2/3 of all the states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. Those are the two conditions. Now let's break this down further. None of the candidates in the presidential election will be declared a winner if he or she doesn't secure majority of votes cast at the presidential election and 25% of the votes in at least 2/3 of all the states of the Federation and the FCT. If none of the candidates meets the threshold of securing the highest number of votes cast, as well as 25% in 2/3 of all the states of the Federation and the FCT, INEC must conduct a second election. And that second election is known as the runoff. And the runoff must be conducted within 21 days from the date of the declaration of the result for the first round of the election. That's what the Constitution says. A runoff is a voting system used to elect a single winner where no candidate meets the conditions for securing a win in the first round of the elections. So for the presidential election, not all the 18 registered political parties who sponsored candidates will participate in the runoff election. Only 2 candidates will be on the ballot. The first candidate will be the presidential candidate who secured the highest number of lawful votes. That will be the candidate that will make it to the runoff election. The second candidate will be the one who, amongst the remaining candidates, who has majority of votes in the highest number of states. These are the 2 candidates that will make it to the ballot at the runoff election. So first, the candidate who secures the highest number of votes, and second, the candidate, who has majority of votes in the highest number of states. So where there is more than one candidate who has the majority of votes in the highest number of states, this is what the law says INEC will do. INEC will consider amongst, these candidates who has the highest number of votes in the election. So they look at the total number of votes that each of the candidates secured, and the one with the highest total number of votes will become the second candidate on the ballot for a runoff elections. Now, victory in a runoff election is by simple majority, unlike the first round that requires the fulfillment of those two conditions of the highest number of votes and then 25% of votes in at least 2/3 of the state and the FCT. And what this means is 25% of votes in 24 states and the FCT. Remember, only INEC has the power to declare results. No other institution or individual is saddled with that responsibility. We urge you to be patient, wait as INEC is collating and declaring the results. Please refrain from peddling or spreading all forms of fake news. The only institution responsible for declaring official results is INEC, and we urge you as Nigerians to be patient and understanding and wait until INEC declares the final results for the election. Thank you for watching. I am Samson Itodo. Bye for now.
You're watching special coverage of Nigeria's 2023 presidential and legislative election here on Arise News. I am Adesoa Omoruan.
And I'm Charles Aniagolu. Let's cross live now to the National Collation Center, where Arise Politics editor Sumner Sambo is standing by to shed more light on what's been going on there. Good to see you, Sumner. Just bring us up to date with the process of collating and counting. What have we been hearing from the Electoral Commission, INEC, so far?
Thank you so much, Charles and Adeswa. It's good to see all of you again. So the National Collation Center is currently at the 29th state of the country, if you may add FCT, as we have heard that controversy surrounding whether FCT is a state or not by some of the political parties based on the earlier Supreme Court judgment. So as it stands, we are supposed to get 37 of those results, and we have 29 at the moment. So we're expecting 8 states which will be announced from the next hour. Because as at 7 p.m., the INEC National Chairman, who's the Chief Electoral Officer of the Federation, had announced that the Collation Center was going on a 2-hour break, and when we come back, we'll have more states then. But I mean, it's been full of intrigues, and of course, we've seen about 15 additional states, being brought by several state collation officers. And then, of course, in the midst of all that we've seen and heard, there was an incident that happened at the beginning of the collation for today, which is the Inter-Party Advisory Council, which is the body of all political parties in the country, having its national chairman, Yabaji Sani, who happens to be also the chairman of the African Democratic Action Democratic Party, and then of course he's also the presidential candidate of the ADP, leading some party chairmen here to pass a vote of confidence on the national chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission. And then the party chairman took turns to actually talk on several issues as to why the other aggrieved political parties like the Labour Party and the PDP should allow the process to be completed. And in the midst of that, Charles, we also had the Chief Press Secretary to the INEC National Chairman, Rotimi Oyekomi, issuing a statement where he has categorically stated that the Chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, will not resign as been demanded by the agents of the PDP, and then, of course, Labour Party, who had walked out yesterday. So, in a nutshell, this is all that's been happening. It's been quiet, though earlier on in the day we had some protesters who came within the precincts of the National Coalition Center here at the International Conference Center within Abuja Central District, protesting and asking INEC to follow its guidelines, because according to them, INEC did not conduct the electronic transmission of results of the presidential polls as was required by its own guidelines and the Electoral Act according to them. But of course, the security services had to intervene.
Slowly but surely, Somna Sambo, and I was just checking my tally. With the announcement of Sokoto, the whole of the Northwest results have come in. And of course, I think the Southwest as well. As you said, we're still expecting more states. But do you think that perhaps we can wrap up this process today? Is it possible? What do you think?
Yes, this was based on precedents, having covered several of these processes here in the past. There's a tendency that the results may finally come in, and this may be the 2-hour break may be a process to actually allow for all results to be brought in here, and eventually, hopefully, within the early hours of Wednesday, we should have a winner being emerged, or if there's a runoff, it will be announced, or whatever it is that the results are telling us at the moment. So it's left for the Chief Electoral Officer of the Federation, who happens to be the Presidential Returning Officer, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to announce to the nation if indeed any of the candidate has met the constitutional requirements as prescribed in Section 133 and 134 of the 1999 Constitution. And of course, if you look at Section 65 and 66 of the Electoral Act, all of these have prescribed the mode for the declaration of election result. And so all eyes will be on the INEC chairman if indeed this process is able to be concluded tonight or in the early hours of Wednesday for a declaration to be made, or a second ballot to be made if indeed no one has been able to cross the threshold.
And Sumner, you talked earlier briefly about this ongoing controversy, the back and forth between the leading political parties about whether or not the election the results should be cancelled. There have been demonstrations, I understand, in favour of and against INEC. Quite a crowd of people apparently gathering outside the Collation Centre where you are on the basis of that result being called into question. Are there concerns that the demonstrations on either side might escalate, that the politicians might stoke the fires as the anger smoulders?
Well, Charles, we've seen a lot of reinforcement within the precincts of the International Conference Center here, which is the holding facility for the National Coalition Center. A lot of anti-riot policemen are around, and of course, this is within the precinct of the military headquarters, where we have the defense headquarters located with the headquarters of the Nigerian Army, Navy, and Air Force. So this is a very, very fortified zone, and of course, with this process that we're in at the moment, and having had 29 states, I wouldn't be surprised if when the final collation starts in the next hour, we should be able to see reinforced security in addition to what we are seeing earlier in the morning, which was higher than that of yesterday, and then even Saturday. And so as it stands right now, there have been protests. A lot of Nigerians are aggrieved, and a lot of Nigerians are also have come around to say, look, there are ways to address any grievances, so this is not the right place to actually come around and protest. And the authorities, especially the FCT police, are asking Nigerians within this area to allow the proceedings to go on peacefully. Let what exactly is prescribed in the law books be allowed to take place, and then whosoever has any grievances should approach the law courts here and there, that the police will be prepared to do what the law asks it to do. But in a nutshell, yes, you have talked about these grievances. The contending factors that have led to these grievances, and you've seen several press conferences, briefings being held by, interestingly, the PDP and the Labour Party coming together for the very first time, where we saw the PDP vice presidential candidate and that of the LP all coming together to personally, state their own ways, how they feel about it. And then as a party, the major grievance has been that, according to them, INEC did not upload all the results simultaneously or swiftly as the guidelines of INEC has said. And then if you follow the arguments that have been made by the APC agent, Babatunde Ogala here, who himself is a senior advocate of Nigeria, he has said clearly here that it's not compulsory immediately for INEC to do that. It depends on exactly what it's available to INEC at the moment, and that INEC was beginning to upload the results as available, as it was made available. So the other political parties should be cautious in some of their statements that they have been making, and that the guidelines of INEC are just administrative ways of how the Electoral Commission can, attend to issues. That we have the electoral law, and then, of course, the Constitution, which both supersedes the guidelines of the Commission. But some of the aggrieved parties are saying that, look, the guidelines, it's more of like an oath that INEC has sworn by itself to follow, so that those results should have been uploaded swiftly, and that because Nigerians can't have access to it, they don't know if what is being read just inside this hall is exactly what is meant to have been uploaded. So it's left for INEC to tell us at the end of this process, like the INEC National Chairman has said, whether indeed they are bound by what they have in their guidelines or not. So as it stands right now, we all are waiting what eventually the INEC National Chairman will say at the end of the collation, because he had asked for this time yesterday, that we should allow him until the end of the collation before he can make a decision on that.
Somna, we have seen spokespersons of the major opposition political parties were saying vice presidential candidates of the parties. Hopefully, perhaps the next would be the presidential candidates themselves as things are going. But let me ask you, because we talked about IPAC speaking earlier, can it be said that they were speaking for all of these aggrieved parties? And what did the IPAC chairman mean when he said he was with the parties, but that the coalition should go ahead?
Thank you so much, Adesuwa, for that question. Well, if you know how IPAC operates, most of the dominant political parties over time hardly send their national chairman, although they subscribe to the ideals of having a body of all political parties. So right from when that institution was formed, whenever there's a meeting of political party chairman, summoned by IPAC, most times it's usually the other fringe parties that you see being present there. As I know, as a journalist, over time, I have never seen, the PDP or APC chairman being present there, except there's a very, very crucial issues that they have interest in. And so in this instance, when the IPAC national chairman was speaking, it could have been that the meeting he talked about was the one that was attended by some other people outside these aggrieved political parties like the PDP and the Labour Party. And of course, if the Labour Party and the PDP had they had staged a walkout, and then, they had grievances, holding press briefings here and there, including the NMPP, which just held a press briefing by its national chairman not quite long, that I don't think that his reference to all of them would include these political parties. So as it stands right now, the people who came around to talk here and said that they were passing a vote of confidence on the INEC national chairman were people who are the chairman of other political parties other than the NMPP, the Labour Party, and the PDP. So it looks like there could be some sort of division within these political parties. But of course, it's left for the PDP and Labour Party and NMP, to actually dispute if indeed the IPAC national chairman was representing their interest or not. But this is what we learned.
Well, thank you so much, Somnath Sambo, our politics editor live from the National Collation Center here in Abuja. We do appreciate